Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting, the regular scheduled board meeting on 25 July 2022. Wanted to start the meeting off just a moment of silence as we pay our respects to a dear student who life was lost over the weekend, as well as a phenomenal, historical, legendary coach in the district who passed away as well. So just want to do a brief moment of silence before we start the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We now welcome you to the regularly scheduled board meeting on 25 July 2022 of the Akron Public Schools Board of Education. Thank you everyone for being here. This is a very special day for Akron Public Schools and some phenomenal leaders that's been in our midst for many, many years, and we get to celebrate them today. So we're going to start off by some formalities, and then we're going to get to the celebration. So first we'll do roll call for attendance. Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Present.
Ms. Autry?
Here.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will now move to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Autry, do you mind leading us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We now move to community and school reflections from our board members. Anyone has any community or school reflections? Ms. Autry, then Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. President. And you've already acknowledged the death of Coach Flossie, and I just, as a person who was there at Bookdale during his time there, I just wanted to also extend condolences to his family and loved ones. He is just a true testament of the power of coaching and the role that it plays for our young people. So many folks in my class were able to go on to higher education because of him and his support and mentorship. He was more than just a coach, and so I just wanted to acknowledge him, extend condolences. Also, since we last met, I was invited by East cheerleading team to help them with their auditions or tryouts rather, and I just wanted to give a special shout out to those coaches over there as well for working with those young ladies. It was nice to see young people out doing something positive, and again, just the power of coaching that it has on our young people is really important role that they play. So thank you to those coaches, those young ladies, and those families who made sure those young ladies were there and participating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alexander.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I also want to say condolences to a number of people. One, to the family of the young man who passed, our student from Ellet. You know, it's been a lot of tragedy and a lot of things that have been going on in the community, and this is another tragedy of a young man whose talent we will never get a chance to see if it would bloom into be possibly a hero, we would hope, in our city of Akron. Also, condolences to the Flossie family, as mentioned. Coach Flossie has helped a lot of young people around here. One of my close friends who was always close with Coach Flossie when he was in high school, and they were still close to this day until he passed. And I know what he did in that young man's life to help him become the person he is. He's a very good businessman now. He's from Akron. He's from Akron Public Schools. He went to Central Howard, and his name is John Woodridge, and he is doing a lot of great things, not just here in this area in the state of Ohio, but throughout the United States. So I wanted to give condolences to the Flossie family. Also, condolences to the Allen family. Ms. Thelma Allen was a long-time educator here in Akron Public Schools. She helped a lot of young people. She was a reading teacher and reading specialist, and she taught a lot of young people to do well here in Akron Public Schools. And I'm sure that if we had to ask a group of people about her, they would say how much she helped them and helped them in their lives, not just in the classroom, but in their lives. So I want to give condolences to her family as well. And then one of the things, I kind of left my material at home, but I'm going to just give one thing. OSBA we had our trustee meeting last weekend, and there were a number of things that were discussed, and one that I wanted to make sure the board was aware of, and I'll bring the others next week when I make sure I have my paperwork, but OSBA is now in COSBA. We know that's a new organization. They're not in part of NSBA anymore, and they are having their Urban Boards of Alliance, the first Board of Alliance meeting, which is similar. They're somewhat similar to CUBE, and they're having that on September the 8th and 9th, and I wanted to make sure that all of our board members were aware of that, and make sure you got your information. If you didn't, let me know so that I can make sure you get that information. That's it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and appreciate that update for that alliance there. Anyone else? Any other board member? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we will go to the next item on the agenda, which is request to address the board. Do not believe we have any requests to address the board today, and so we will move to item number 2, which is recognitions of our distinguished employees with their emeritus status and certificates. So first, I just want to say to all of our emeritus employees, we are so honored to have you here today, and we celebrate you. So before we start celebrating them individually, can we all give them all just a round of applause? This is beyond, just amazing to have these individuals. Collectively, they have well over 500 years of experience, which is amazing to say that we have had that much investment from such dedicated people in our district. So with that being said, we are going to start with our celebration of Pamela Campbell from the elementary school teacher, 40 years of service for Akron Public Schools. I believe that's Mr. Perry.
Pamela Campbell. Pamela Campbell is a proud Viking, having graduated from Akron North High School. After high school, she earned a Bachelor of Science degree in early education from Kent State University in 1980. She also attended the University of Akron, Ashland University, and the University of Oregon, where she earned graduate credits. In 1980, Pam was hired as a substitute teacher with the Akron Public Schools. A year later, she served as the skip kindergarten teacher at Finley Elementary. She worked part-time for 2 years and was hired as a full-time teacher to work at a split assignment at Barber and Betty Jane schools. In 1985, she was assigned to Barber School, where she remained for the remainder of her career. She was known for using a variety teaching techniques that involved the children as active participants in the classroom. Former principal Charles McVan wrote in her evaluation, "Students are actively involved in your lessons as active participants." Former Principal Roy Copeland wrote in her evaluation, "The students work well in cooperative groups." Children are actively involved in the lessons. Classroom discussions reach higher level thinking skills. Involving the children at this level requires one to be very organized. Former Principal Jen Nadeau wrote in Pamela's evaluation, "Ms. Campbell is highly organized and a very hard-working teacher." In addition to her classroom responsibilities, Pamela has served in leadership capacity on numerous building committees that address curriculum and building issues. She was a member of the building leadership team and on the school improvement team. Curriculum committees included 100 Book Challenge and the Lighthouse Project. Pam has been a loyal barber bearer for 39 years, with most of her years at the second grade level. Her dedicated service to the children and the Akron Public Schools is greatly appreciated. Enjoy your retirement. Congratulations, Pamela.
Thank you.
Photo?
Yes.
Whole thing?
Okay. We're going to do it. Very good. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Everyone has the opportunity. I get choked up when people talk about how long I've taught. It didn't seem that long. It's something I truly enjoy doing, and there were ups and downs, as everyone knows. I think what made me choose to retire now were twofold. Getting through remote learning was a challenge. It was quite difficult for many of us teachers. Doing something we've never done before with second graders. And in coming back, things were different. And I really didn't see that my teaching career could be what it was, because there were so many challenges as children were coming back with so many issues they were dealing with because of the remote learning. And I pray that we can teach them and get them where they need to be. And I don't feel like I've given up on them, because I know I got many students where they are today. But I feel for those struggling through right now. I really do. This is not an easy career. It is not a career that we get a lot of kudos for. We do what we do because we love what we do. And that's how I felt. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It got me for clamped. I think that's what we just heard was just another reason why we want to celebrate each and every one of you. It's because that sheer dedication and passion exudes from you. It's undeniable. Undeniable. So thank you for your words. And I think it's also undeniable for this next person as well, Mrs. Felicia Campbell. If you could come join us here. So not only is Mrs. Felicia Campbell brilliant and stylish, as you can see, she is also a proud Griffin, and she graduated from Akron Bookdales High School. After high school, she attended the University of Akron, where she received the Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education. And years later, she earned a Master of Science degree in education from the University of Akron. In 1989, Felicia was hired by Akron Public Schools to be a teacher at Cross Elementary School. She left elementary school level in 2001, where she began teaching at Litchfield Middle School. From Litchfield, she moved to Reedinger Middle School as an instructional coach and ventured into a new assignment where she could learn and develop new and unique concepts in teaching. Felicia became a teacher at the newly created NIF STEM school, where she remained there the remainder of her career. At NIF STEM allowed Felicia to teach students using problem-based approaches to learning. And as Mrs. Campbell said, children solve problems using real-life solutions. She enjoyed working with local businesses such as the Art Museum, Akron Children's Hospital, the Akron Zoo, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and many others. She embraced this new approach which encouraged students to use 21st century literacy skills and critical thinking skills to learn how to solve problems and grow as individuals. Her students were growing academically, and she was growing professionally, Principal Amanda Morgan said. She worked very closely with her grade level team and content area team for the benefit of the learners and her professional growth. Teacher Donna Rojic stated that Felicia is a teacher that has enabled all learners to feel safe, valued, and learned and loved. She is dedicated to being a lifelong learner and was always willing to adapt and improve. Felicia was a willing learner. However, Principal Morgan noted she was also known for her kindness and her grace. These attributes help make learning at NIFSTEM a special place for the students, and Akron Public Schools would like to say thank you and congratulations, Mrs. Felicia Campbell. Yes.
First, I just want to say thank you to committee members, anyone responsible for this. This was unexpected. But I was hoping I didn't have to say anything, but now I'm kind of glad I did. I am, because I can't believe that my career has come to retirement. It seems like literally I just started not long ago, and it has been a blessing. You don't know all the time the lives that you really make an impression on until you're out and you're going about your day, going about your business, and you see these tall adults with children, and they come up and they hug you and they tell you, Miss Campbell, I was Miss Campbell then. I was Coach Campbell for the last 13 years at NIFSTEM. Prior to that, we were just Mrs. So they would come up and say, Mrs. Campbell, remember me? And I'm looking up, and I'm like, wow. And then they tell me what school, what year, and the memories flood back, and we just get caught up. And they say to me, you know, I thank you so much, because you really did make a difference in my life. All of that hard work you made us do in writing, because I was a language arts teacher, so I was a stickler for the writing and a stickler for how you put together your work and present it. And to have young people come back and tell me it paid off in college and it really, you know, made a difference. And to just let me know, hey, I got my degree in this area, I'm doing this, I'm married. It really, as an educator, makes me very proud. And I'm just so grateful to God that it is a hard field. It has changed in the 33 years I was here. But I would not have chosen another career. In hindsight, when I look back, I am very grateful that one day I know people will be sitting at their tables with their kids and they'll be saying, I remember my teacher in 6th grade, Miss Campbell or Coach Campbell. And even though I won't be there to hear their stories, I know in my heart that I made a difference in their life. Thank you.
Next, we have Rebecca Brent, high school teacher, 36 years. Okay. All right. Well, for the sake of honoring her, I will read about her now. So Mrs. Brent graduated from Talmadge High School, where she was a standout athlete. And in 1985, she graduated from the University of Akron, where she received her Bachelor of Science degree in Physical Education and Health. She also did graduate work at the University of Akron, Kent State University, and Ashland University. During her undergraduate studies at the University of Akron, Rebecca was an All-American in softball and is enshrined in their Athletic Hall of Fame. In 1986, Rebecca was hired by Akron Public Schools as a physical education teacher. Her initial assignment was the split assignment at Voorhees, Barrett, and Cyberling elementary schools. In 1995, Rebecca became the health and physical education teacher at Miller South, where she remained in this assignment until 2015, when she moved to her final assignment at Ellet High School. Rebecca was considered a good teacher by her supervisors, and Ellet principal Michelle Marcus Kearns stated, she is a good teacher who provides the students alternative ways to learn. The academy principal, Mrs. Riley, she said that she is reflective and a student-focused and creates relevant lessons that are problem-based and community-focused. She is an outstanding teacher who is dedicated to her students, and she will be greatly missed. It says a lot when the evaluator has such high praise for her former teacher. Ms. Riley was once a student of Mrs. Brandt at Miller South. Not only was Rebecca a good teacher, she was also a positive influence in the building. Rebecca was a coach for many years in tennis at Ellet. She once took over a coaching position so the team could continue to play. Teacher colleague Ann Rose stated she would find a minute to listen to you when you needed an ear and encouraging words when you needed support. The principal stated, we are appreciative of the time and efforts that Becky put into the teaching profession for 35 plus years. I'm inspired by her vision and motivation, and the students of Ellet CLC were blessed to have her as a teacher. Akron Public Schools say thank you and wish you well on your retirement, Mrs. Brandt. Thank you very much. With that being said, we now have Mrs. Withrow, and that's Mr. Alexander.
Good evening. I have Mrs. Sharon Withrow, special education teacher. Sharon Withrow, proudly graduate of Archbishop Hoban High School. After high school, she attended the University of Akron, where she earned her bachelor's degree in science in education with a focus on special education. She returned to the University of Akron to receive her master's of education in reading supervision. She initially was hired for Akron Public Schools as a substitute teacher and then as a tutor. She became a full-time teacher in 1986 as a special education teacher. Her first assignment was Betty Jane Annex. From Betty Jane, she moved to Leggett Elementary School for 7 years, was another move in the future. Another move became her last move. She was assigned to Glover Elementary, where she would remain as an elementary teacher until her retirement. Former principal Alice Simmons wrote in her evaluation, Ms. Withrow is a hard worker who strives to complete all tasks on time and correctly. She worked on the building school improvement team and the building leadership team. She was a team player helping to make the building better. However, the children came first. Current Dean of Students, Brian Pretzloff, said of her, she is always here for the kids. A teacher, a colleague of hers, Mrs. Julie Paulus, remarked, Sherry is very hardworking. She is always willing to learn new things that will help her students be successful. Clearly, Sharon Withrow was recognized for her hard work and dedication to the children. Current principal, Filomeno Vincente, stated, she is very dedicated and always puts the children first. The children at Glover School were the recipients of her dedicated teaching for the past 34 years. Sharon Withrow will be missed by students and parents alike. She was well liked. Former principal LaMonica Davis said it very well when she wrote in Sharon's evaluation, great job. You are an asset to Glover School. Thank you for all that you do. We now thank you, Sharon, for all that you have done for the students in the Akron Public Schools. Enjoy your retirement.
I'm really not a speaker, but yeah, I am really proud that I was at Glover, though, for 34 years. And then before that, when I was a tutor, I was there for 2 years. I am known mostly for being a team player. And I know people appreciate that, and I'm always a good listener, too. And I really enjoyed working with special ed kids and seeing them improve. And also, like, when I first started, I had a classroom of kids, and I had them all day long. And it didn't seem right to me that they weren't around other kids. And I found out that Glover was doing more inclusion than where I was. So I ended up at Glover. And then I actually taught first grade for 17 years. And then I went back to special ed because intervention specialist. I thought that was really interesting. When I started, I was just a special ed teacher. Now they call them an intervention specialist, which is really what we do, intervention. And so I wanted to do that. So I became a special ed education teacher. I went back to special ed, and I worked with a lot of really great teachers, and I learned a lot from the teachers. And I really enjoy teaching, and I really don't know what to do now. It seems like I just started yesterday, but I know it's been 38 years. But it's just a little hard right now because I'm used to teaching, and I'm used to going back, and I'm used to doing professional development. Like, they have some professional development in the summer, and I'm like, I want to do that. They have one on inclusion, but yeah, I'm retired, so. But thank you.
I'm going to say this before I sit down. There was a theme in her script there. It said, for the students. It was all about the students. That's what it's all about. Education is all about the students. So we all have to remember our focus of what we're doing is going to affect our students. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We now next have Mrs. Gigi, and that is Mrs. McKittrick.
Well, buckle up, y'all, because we have 44 years of service to Akron Public Schools to get through. So buckle up. You ready for this?
Yes. Ready for it to be over.
Oh, you don't want me to edit this on the fly, do you? So after graduating from South Hills High School in Pittsburgh, Karen attended the College of Worcester, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts degree. She later graduated from the University of Akron with a Master of Arts degree in education. In 1978, Karen was hired by Akron Public Schools to be a teacher. Her first assignment was at West Junior High School in the High Intensive Reading Center. She then moved to Reading Middle School in the same year. Sorry, I messed that all up. She moved to Reading Middle School in the same teaching assignment a year later. After teaching English at Garfield High School, good choice, she became the English as a second language teacher at Reading Middle School in 1982 and Central Howard in 1983. Her skills as a teacher propelled her to the next level in her blossoming career. In 1984, Karen became a supervisor of teachers in the bilingual education program. 2 years later, she became a curriculum specialist. After 3 years in this assignment, she became a supervising teacher. In 1991, Karen was appointed coordinator learning specialist. She became the language arts and ESL learning specialist in 1997. After 3 years, she was appointed principal of Case Elementary School and later Cyberling Elementary School in 2000. Her skills and experiences were obvious. Many of her supervisors noted her skills and accomplishments in her evaluations. Assistant Superintendent Sylvester Small wrote in her progress report in 1996, You have provided excellent leadership and direction in the district to increase performance on the reading and writing tests. Supervisor Susan Long wrote in Karen's evaluation as a learning specialist. The ESL program today exists because of your leadership. Her executive director, Brenda Church, in 2004 wrote in Karen's principal evaluation. Your staff, as well as your community, view you as one who promotes the success of all students by acting with integrity, fairness, and in an ethical manner. Karen's leadership skills, curriculum understanding, and integrity propelled her to be appointed Executive Director of Teaching and Learning in 2009. She has remained in that assignment since. All of her experiences have contributed to her success in this assignment. They also prepared her for the demanding time and expertise needed to be successful. Being the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning requires her to become even more involved in district initiatives. She has restructured gifted services to make them more effective. She helped plan and organize professional development to help teachers and administrators meet district and state initiatives. She was the lead in the district's OTES implementation. She was the lead person in the PACE initiative. Karen collaborated with various departments to successfully complete the laptop device rollout, and these are just a few of the projects she worked on in her assignment. All were successful. Assistant Superintendent Dr. Ella McWilliams-Woods wrote in Karen's evaluation, Mrs. Gijic is known across the district as a colleague who can get any task accomplished with accuracy, clarity, and communication, and in a timely manner. Karen is known for her special comments. Learning specialist Don Wilson said the phrase, "We have an opportunity," was Karen's nice way to say, "Get ready to do more work." Learning specialists Dr. Lloyd Dang Wen and Dr. Tone Dang Wen said Karen's favorite phrase was, "No worries," meaning, "We'll make it work." Karen is a very humble person. She always tries to deflect credit for accomplishments from her to her colleagues. As Dr. McWilliams-Woods wrote in Karen's evaluation, Mrs. Gijic is an incredibly valuable member of our senior leadership team. She is a humble, dedicated, tireless leader who keeps the district moving forward. And that comment sums up the career of Karen Gijic. So as you get ready to join the retirement group, all in your department wish you the best of luck in future endeavors. Now you can spend more time at Kohl's, Lucky Shoes, Myers department stores, and watching General Hospital when it airs. And yes, you may keep on cheering for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Thank you, Karen, for your 44 years of service to Akron Public Schools. Congratulations.
I did write a few words down. Superintendent Fowler Mack, Board President Dr. Akbar, members of the board, senior staff, and Akron Public School staff. Thank you for the certificate. As a direct result of the support I have received from the learning community, I am able to stand here tonight and humbly accept this certificate. Many APS staff members have shared wisdom and offered guidance over the years. I think of those supportive school community members as wisdom whisperers. So many of you, so many APS leaders have paused and whispered wisdom into me. I want to take a moment to give voice and recognize a few of the many wisdom whisperers tonight. Superintendents Ott, Williams, Small, James, and Fowler Mack have whispered wisdom my way, and I thank them for that. My first principals and assistant principals, who are true legends, Martin Chapman, the original Larry Johnson, assistant Sarah Stanley, who then became one of the first female principals, Sandy Belofi, who really was a co-principal with me and taught me how to be a principal, the teachers from Case and Cyberling, IB teams led by Jen Victor, Sandy Klein, Sharon Hill, Tammy Brady, Mary Dean, Jessica Sachs, Diane Floyd, Kim Summers, and Matt Doslack. Secretaries like Jackie Allison, Brenda White, Donna Marie Smith, and Kim Derenberger. and the team of Krista, Patty, Amber, Susie, Kathy Booth, Goldie, Sterling, Jeff, custodians like Mark Hetzer, Dave Straharsky, Jim Dyer, from this building, Doug and Ray, safety team members like Ken Anderson, Danielle, and Terrence. There's a little quote by JFK that we must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives. Those people that I want to thank include Reverend Fowler, Reverend Walker, and Mr. Alexander for their leadership on the board. So many community-minded leaders pause to share wisdom and support the work of the district. Thank you to the wisdom whisperers in teaching and learning. Thank you to the mentor principals, Phil Vincente, Greg Blondheim, Kristen Booth, Becky Green-Pallotta, Julie Mann. Thank you to the regular whisperers who, on a daily basis, whispered into my ear. Mark Williamson, Todd Wamas, Todd Atkins, Howard Lawson, Yvonne, Carla, Deborah, Ellen, all of the senior staff that surround this room have whispered, and I have benefited from your wisdom. And then there are the family whisperers who have a different tone and a different cadence, and they don't always whisper when they think I need to be corrected. But thank you, Michael, Elizabeth, Paul. Yes, Paul, thank you. Amanda, Andy, and Victor. But mostly, thank you for making so many ordinary moments extraordinary. Thank you for sharing wisdom. Thank you, Superintendent Fowler-Mack.
Wow. Thank you very much. We will now move to Mr. Brantley, 41 years, and this, okay. 41 years, a paraprofessional who couldn't make it today, so I will read her, I'm sorry. Did you say it's her? Yes, her. I am so sorry. Read her words here to celebrate her for 41 years within the district as an educational assistant. Mrs. Brantley is a proud graduate of the former South High School in Akron. After high school, she attended the College of Steubenville and the University of Akron. In 1977, Mrs. Brantley joined the Akron Public Schools under the CETA program. Her first school assignment was at Rankin Elementary School, where she was a library floater. After 6 years at Rankin, she was assigned to Erie Island as an LRC technician for 10 years. Mrs. Brantley resigned and moved to California for 1 year, and in 1994 returned to Akron, where she was rehired as an LRC technician at Roswell, Kent. She worked in library and media services for 1 year before finding her home at Leggett Elementary School, where she remained until her retirement in April of 2022. Wherever Mrs. Brantley worked, supervisors were extremely pleased with her performance. Words such as organized, competent, excellent, exemplary, caring, and positive are found throughout her evaluations. Leggett Principal Gary Blondheim wrote in the evaluation that she has masterfully integrated technology into the program and keeps students engaged. Former Leggett Principal Vincenti wrote in the evaluation that she is a positive role model for students, parents, and staff. And Dr. Atkinson, from a former principal for Leggett, wrote that her study and library skill programs are an asset to our students. and former Kent principal Elaine Vibro wrote that she is a team player who will help out whoever is needed. One can see that Mrs. Brentley has quite positive impact on those whom she has worked with. Principal Vibro may have said it best, that Mrs. Brentley is too good to be true. She is competent and conscientious in everything she does. And all that touched is very positive, and Mrs. Brentley will be missed. Those who followed her in the LRC will be held to a very high standard. And thank you, Mrs. Brentley, for your contributions to the students and staff of Akron Public Schools. So, thank you very much. We now have Mike Lopez, and that's Dr. Hall.
Hi, Mike. So I have the honor and privilege of talking to you a bit about Mr. Mike Lopez. He's a proud Wildcat graduate of the Canton South High School. After high school, he had an interest in the audiovisual field. Prior to being hired by the Akron Public Schools, he received technical training from many audiovisual manufacturers, such as 3M, Apple, Bell & Howell, Zenith, and Singer. He was prepared to start a career. In 1985, Arlen was hired by the Akron Public Schools as an audiovisual repairer in the maintenance department. He was now required to apply all the skills in which he was trained to help keep the school buildings and their audiovisual equipment running properly. The equipment included smart boards, security cameras, televisions, projectors, school clock systems, and public address systems, just to name a few. As they would say, who are you going to call? Not the Ghostbusters. That's a delayed laugh. Come on, folks. Who are you going to call? Okay. Not the Ghostbusters, but Mike. He was ready, willing, and able to assist. Supervisors acknowledged his accomplishments. Arlen has maintained perfect attendance throughout most of his career. This shows dedication to the job. Former supervisor Michael Visich wrote in Arlen's evaluation, he goes the extra mile to accomplish the necessary goals to keep the classrooms operational. He is an asset to this department and the school system in general. In 2017, Arlen was promoted to audiovisual foreman in the maintenance department. He remained in this assignment until his retirement. Current supervisor Rob Boxler stated, he continued to keep the media operations going for the teachers in a timely manner. He has also done a fine job managing the 2,000 plus security cameras spread throughout the district. Keeping our schools safe is a high priority, obviously. Thank you, Mike, and your department for doing this for our students and our staff. Mike is now ready to move on to his next assignment in life. The Akron Public Schools wish to let you know your contributions to the district are appreciated. You can now turn over all the requests for help from the buildings to the next Ghostbusters replacement. Enjoy your retirement. Congratulations, Mike.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm happy that I don't field the phone calls anymore. like those from Karen, whose demands you cannot refuse. And of course, as soon as I retire, she retires. You know. And Deborah, who you could never refuse. And I want to thank you, Deborah, for funding somehow all those headaches that I've always had over the years, somehow finding the funding to cover those needs. So that's appreciated. And I want to thank the Board of Education especially for all these years of continuous employment, because as a man, it's important to support your family, and I couldn't have done that without you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations again, Mike. Next, we have Keith Harvey, and that is Mrs. Autry.
It's my honor to speak with you this evening about Keith Harvey, custodian. Custodians are near and dear to my heart. As a PTA person, I love you guys so much. Keith Harvey graduated as a very proud Golden Ram from Akron Garfield High School. He was ready to join the workforce and make a difference. Keith joined the Akron Public Schools as a custodial worker in 1985 at North High School. In 1988, he was assigned as an assistant custodian at Firestone Park Elementary School. 3 years later, he moved to Ellet High School. From Ellet High School, he became an assistant custodian nights at Ennis Middle School. In 1995, he was assigned to the administration building as an assistant custodian, where he remained in that assignment until 2006. A promotion was coming. Head custodian. His first assignment in his new designation was at Barrett Elementary School and then to Glover Elementary School. His next assignment brought out the Golden Ram pride in him. He went home to Garfield High School in 2012, which eventually became Kenmore Garfield. He remained in that assignment until his retirement in February of this school year. Keith was recognized as a fine custodian by his supervisors. Former Barrett principal Suzette Smith wrote in his evaluation, "Mr. Harvey is resourceful, thorough, and extremely efficient." She also wrote, "He models a great work ethic." Former Glover principal Becca Cassiopo wrote in his evaluation, "Mr. Harvey is excellent in every aspect of maintaining Glover at a high level of cleanliness, proper safety, daily maintenance, upkeep of all equipment, and adjustments required in opening a new building." Former administration building supervisor Dennis Riffle wrote in Keith's evaluation, "The grounds are beautiful, mostly from Keith. He took pride in maintaining the inside of the buildings and the grounds." Former Garfield principal Frank Collane put it simple and to the point when he wrote in Keith's evaluation, "He takes the initiative to get work done." Custodians are an integral part of the building organization. Keith Harvey made sure every building he worked in was kept clean and safe. He made the workplace a home away from home for all who came to visit or work. And we thank you and wish you well on your retirement. Congratulations, Keith.
Thank you. I'm not a big speaker, but I want to thank you for the recognition. It was a big surprise. I want to thank all the people that I've met over the years and became friends with, especially Deborah. When I first became head custodian at Barrett, she was a huge help to me. A lot of things were needed over there, and I could go to her, and she helped me out immensely. So I want to thank her for that. And I enjoy working with all the kids that I've met over the years, and especially when I was at Glover, and then when I went to Garfield, a lot of those kids grew up and came over there, and I recognized some of them I didn't, but they would come up and they recognized me and would always say hi to me, even some of them out on the street if I saw them somewhere. So I want to thank everybody for the time that I was here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our one final recognition, which is Jesse Mitchell, who's from Child Nutrition, 35 years. Unable to be here with us today, but I will read their accolades as well. So Jesse Mitchell graduated from the former South High School in Akron. For many years, she was a stay-at-home mom, raising her children and spending lots of time volunteering at Rankin Elementary School. She spent so much time there that someone told her that she should get a job there. So, in 1987, she applied for and was hired to be an elementary helper in the child nutrition department. Her first assignment was at, you guessed it, Rankin Elementary School. She would remain in that assignment for 25 years. When Rankin School was closed, Jessie was assigned to Schumacher CLC, where she remained until her retirement. Jessie was extremely respected by her supervisors. Words such as exemplary, outstanding, conscientious, dependable, thorough, pleasant, and efficient are commonly found in her evaluations. Former Principal Joanne Smith wrote in her evaluation, "Mrs. Mitchell is outstanding. She graciously goes out about her duties in a pleasant and professional manner." Supervisor Mary Farakis wrote in her evaluation, "Mrs. Mitchell continues to be an exemplary employee. Exceeds expectations in all areas." Former Rankin Principal Sewell may have said it best when she wrote in Jessie's evaluation, "It is always easy to complete Jessie's evaluation because she consistently excels in all her areas of job performance." Jessie was an employee who was reliable and could be counted on a daily basis. She had 27 years of perfect attendance. That's outstanding. This reflects her love and dedication to her job and the children she served. Former Rankin Principal Megan Mannion wrote in Jessie's evaluation, "Her love and dedication to our students is evident on a daily basis. The students and staff at Schumacher CLC will miss you and thank you for your dedicated and loyal service to Akron Public Schools. Enjoy your retirement, Mrs. Mitchell." With that said, we do want to take time to thank each and every one of our Emeritus employees, and we're going to take a 5-minute recess to do that. So we will stand in recess for 5 minutes. Oh, and in that time, we're going to take a photo. Sorry. Is it outside? Okay, Mark is going to direct us. We stand in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we're not going to get the music this time. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and welcome back to the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Akron Public Schools. We will now move on to the rest of our agenda. The next item on our agenda is communications, and we are going to learn more about our amazing summer experiences. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Akbar. Good evening to members of the board and our community. We're really excited to be at the stage midway through, almost 3/4 of the way through the summer, where we can report to the board on our summer experience from this year. As you are aware, one of the big bets that we've made through the use of our Esser dollars is around engaging our students, expanding opportunities for them, and doing a lot of that this summer. And so we thought that we would share with you some of what has been occurring, and then to also hear a lot about what those involved, what they have to say about it. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Keith Lichty, and he's going to share a presentation, and he'll describe, because you just asked me a few minutes ago, whose work is this? So he's going to share with you whose work that you have sitting beside you. Yeah.
Exactly. I will sign that for you later.
Okay.
Right. Autographs later. Yeah. We are super excited to be here. Thank you, Superintendent Fowler-Mack. I also need to thank, we had some consultants working with us this year. The ILO group was phenomenal in pushing our work together, and then also the district leadership summer network through the Wallace Foundation. So they've really, again, helped us push our thinking so that we can be better for our students. So we had a few big goals. One was to strengthen our internal systems. So that was around attendance, central registration, attendance, program outcomes, budgeting, getting some really good inputs so that we could get some good outputs at the end, right? So we could measure our successes and begin to look at what we're impacting as a whole. Improving equity and access was a big mission for us, and I'm going to have Desiree and Marcy share a little bit of how we did that in elementary school. Also enhancing the student and family experience. So we're serving a lot of kids in the summer, and we want to make sure that our families know what we're doing and how to sign up for these programs. And then, as I mentioned before, increasing the connection to the outcomes, making sure, as dollars get tight, we need to make sure that we can measure the effectiveness of these programs and know which ones need to continue and where we need to strengthen. One of the things that really paid off for us was centralized registration in multiple ways. One, it gave our parents a one-stop shop for programming. Two, it really facilitated the cross-departmental collaboration. And so everyone in this room had a stake in this as we were developing our programs. And so behind the scenes, it meant that we could get intervention specialists to the right camps to support our students with disabilities with the help of HR and the Office of Special Education. Transportation had a head up of all of the needs. We were able to provide Deb Folk with a list of all of the sites who needed nutrition services. So because when you're running 147 camps, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and that registration was a big part of that. It also helped with targeted communication. So by having all of that in one system, we were able to monitor how those registrations were filling up. So a prime example of that is we noticed that our mystery camps needed some more students. We weren't full yet. So we were able to quickly switch to some paper registration forms, work with our building principals, work with the secretaries, and push those out to families to help us boost those up. So what did the families have to say about our online registration? So you can see from the list here, for the most part, 80% or higher did feel that our website was easy to navigate, online registration was user-friendly, and they were able to get help when they needed it. So we did have a dedicated staff member answering phones this year, giving families one-on-one support to register. A big shout out to Stancy, who also held parent meetings here at 10 North Main and assisted families in registration. Another big aspect was equity and access. So number one, by monitoring all of these programs centrally, we're going to be able to report back very soon who participated, from what clusters, from what schools, not only participation, but also offerings. And so that's going to guide our work in the future as we plan for next summer and also after school. Proud to say that we had camps from pre-K to 12, so we were able to serve all kids this year. That was new. Camps in every neighborhood. I can almost say camps in every school. So again, Desiree and Marcy are going to share a little bit about what we did in the elementary, but that was a great opportunity for our families. And then the programming itself. So we had something for everyone. Every week this summer, there was a camp, and our families could choose full-day options. They could choose half-day, mornings, afternoons. So there was something to fit every family's need. So I'm going to try my best to explain this, and I can answer questions if you have them at the end. But the question of who's participating, how many, has come up a couple times. So when we asked all of our program leads to tell us how many students they can serve across those 140-some programs, that totaled up to about 10,000. So we knew from we knew from, when was school out? June 5th to August 5th. We knew that we had 10,000 spaces. So what that averages, so when those came in, we looked at all the IDs from the registrations, and we have served 4,066 kids this summer. So that means students signed up for one or more camps to fill those 9,538 seats. So in essence, we've been able to serve about 20% of our population, which is pretty on par with the national outcomes for summer programming. And then as we dive deeper, I'll be able to come back to you and share a little bit more about ones registered, who showed up. We're trending around 70% participation. And again, that is in line with all of the national norms as well. So what are our students saying? I really feel like we're hitting the mark with our social emotional needs. So it has allowed them to be more creative, help make friends, and to be more confident about learning new things. I love this quote, if you have kids, you can relate. We were almost never boring this summer. So that's a big win with kids. But I do want to turn it over to Marcy to tell you a little bit more about our flagship camp, Mystery Camps.
Thank you. Sure. The mystery camps take place in the elementary schools for all of our rising 1st through 5th graders and 6th graders over in the East Cluster. This is the second year that we have held mystery camps. Year one, we learned a lot. We really deepened the level of inquiry that students are doing this year and gave them sort of broad topic themes. I think there's a handout on your table around what those camps could be. Instead of direct questions, we let the kids just come up with their own questions and figure out what they wanted to learn about. We had longer time with our campers this summer. We went from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, which meant we were able to get them out in the field more. Last year, we were only able to do 1 field trip. This year, we did at least 3 in every grade level camp. So that was super exciting. Our partners, our Essential Experiences partners, all came back this summer to do camps with our students again. But then we had a whole slew of new partners, ones that we've worked with before, and brand new ones that are working with APS that joined in and got word and were clamoring to come be with us. We increased our registrations this year with our mystery camps. I think last year we were seeing maybe about 700 to 800 each camp, and this year we were well over 1,000 to 1,100 students in the 2 camp windows. And we added in some other things, like a kindness project. You see a picture of it up there on the screen, but if you go around to any of our elementary schools today, you will see what we are calling a temporary art installation, where all the kiddos came together and designed letters for an outside sign around Be Kind 330. We also incorporated this year some Juneteenth and 4th of July projects. We recognize that sometimes those holidays come in the summer, kids don't always get a chance to really learn about them. So they had books and videos and activities and craft projects and things that they had to go along with that throughout the summer as well in their respective camps. I do want to sort of give a shout out. I know I talked about the partner organizations. I'm going to bring this up for a second so everyone can see what we're talking about. But you can see the themes, and then each partner was so great. They are so eager to work with our students every year. We sort of gave them these large, big themes and ideas and said, how could you help students investigate ideas around this? So, for example, my favorite was planes, trains, and automobiles, because the kids got to go to the Maps Air Museum down in Canton. They went to the Soapbox Derby, and they got to go on a train ride. And each of those organizations each came up with some sort of investigation that kids would go and learn about transportation unique to their organization, take it back and digest it. So that was super exciting. But you can just see sort of the scope of partners that came on board, lots of outdoor activities. We had kids out on the farm. They were picking strawberries and corn and meeting pigs and cows. And our extended day, at the end of the day, we'd end at 1:30, and a bunch of kids would get on the bus and go to either the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club, and they were taking swimming lessons and canoeing and all kinds of really cool stuff. I heard so many parents call and say they're so tired when they come home. Like, that's a great thing. So full days for students, really exciting stuff. But as Keith was saying, none of that happened. And I just gotta give a shout out to the amazing team of people that we have that every year, at the end of a school year, we're tired, but we have 150 teachers, more than that sign up and come in and give more time this summer. They come to training. They go and spend time setting up their classroom. They spend 6 weeks with kids, and they are just ready to dive into that work. We have educational assistants that get out and staff all of our building. HR helps us get all those people together. Our nutrition service people are out hand-delivering meals to these experiences. They're driving out to the parks, finding the kids and making sure that they get the food, that they have their lunch. It's pretty amazing. Our transportation department, and we would have to route kids home and route them to all these things. They were all sort of last minute. They're registering at the last second, and they were always just saying yes and making sure that kids could get to camp, get to extended care. They rounded 400 out-of-classroom trips for kids this summer in just mystery camps alone. 400. Pretty amazing and what we can do in 6 weeks. Our special ed services, making sure kids had all their supports, and student services got a bunch of safety team members together and made sure that they were safe going to all these out of school places and getting back safely, because sometimes they didn't get back till 5 or 5:30 at night. That's why they were so tired. So lots of people. Custodial department, I have to give them a special shout out. All the kids get these books, like depending on what their theme is, they get some sort of nonfiction book. This one's called Wreck This Picture Book. It goes along with We Have Big Ideas, and inside of it, the kids are encouraged to rub dirt on pages and put a gum on a page and scribble on a page and make origami out of a page. And one of the pages says, "Make this book fly." And our custodial people would go up, access to the roof, and they would throw the books off for the kids, and the kids would squeal with joy as their book came flying over their heads and landed in the grass. So everybody just got involved, and we appreciate from the mystery camp team, the curriculum team, all the coaches that sat down and spent so many hours writing this stuff. Custom curriculum for our kids this summer. We didn't buy this. We wrote it. Our teachers gave us input. They worked it last year. We revised off of all their feedback, and our curriculum people just knocked it out of the park with really deep, rich stuff for kids to do this summer. So we're super excited. I think I thanked everybody on my list. If I missed someone, I'm sorry. Mary Otley Kelly, I always do that. You're on the top of my list. Leads the vision and direction from teaching and learning elementary education. She sets the vision, gets all of these partners and organizations together, and makes sure that we're all moving this work forward. We started in January, maybe, Mary? Just sort of working through what's going to happen for kids this summer. So thank you for your vision and seeing all this come to life. Thank you.
And to fill in the gaps, Akron After School, we were able to have afternoons for kids that did not leave to go to the other sites. So they went from mystery camp and stayed in their building. We offered programming like mad science, theater, chess, Glazed and Amused, which is a visual art program, Lego camps. And what was really exciting about this summer for our elementary students and our middle school is that we were able to bring back community partners who have not been present because for fiscal reasons for a while, so that we could have Weather Vane Community Playhouse, we could have Rubber City Theater, we could have a Passport to Peace pre-K program, and then we also did Countdown to K, which was an in-house preschool program at North and Stewart. And then in our usual suspects, we had our Mad Science Crayola camps, and then I mentioned Glazed and Amused. And what you have in front of you, the artwork is from our Lego camp students who, Lego camp registration's off the charts. And that's an in-house program designed by teachers. And so we started at Robinson. We are running in the afternoons, and we filled in the gaps between the 6-week programs. We filled in the gap with full-day camps after the 4th of July until the next start of mystery camps. So it's been a very exciting summer, and we are still not tired yet, but we will be August 5th, I think, right? So it's been a great, glorious collaboration. We have a lot of happy kids and happy families.
So I know we've highlighted mostly elementary. Our secondary kids were out and about as well. About a third of our participation did come from secondary, and hundreds of credits, for example, were earned either as credit recovery or credit advancement. And I did include one picture because this one is near and dear to my heart. This was College and Career Academies was teaching students how to ride public transportation so they can use that for jobs in school. I know that that is a learned skill because this summer I tried to ride the bus home during the winter, and I ended up in the valley 3 miles from home and had to call home for a ride. Apparently, you really got to pay attention to the bus numbers. You just can't get on any bus that pulls up. But where do we go from here? So, we are going to spend some time reflecting on the strengths and weaknesses of our programs. We know that we need to continue to look at our quality metrics, and we're working with other partners and organizations to help us do that, to really prepare us for the next level, which is more community involvement, more involvement from our nonprofits, and then a deep, deep dive on the analysis of our student data. So what academic impact did we have, those participation rates, and the overall student experience.
Thank you to the team and to the actually the expanded team sitting around this room, because so many contributions went into this summer and is still going into this summer to make it happen. I just wanted to draw us back again to the goals for this summer. Again, the goals were to strengthen our internal systems, especially so that they were user-friendly for parents and for our scholars, to improve equity and access, because at the end of the day, equity is about outcomes, to enhance the student and family experience in general, to increase the connection to program outcomes for each of our programs. And one that's unstated but just is ever present is that at the end of the day, we wanted to have scholars that are inspired, that are engaged, that are achieving, so that they're ready to carry that into the school year. So we really do so much passion and attention to detail went into really raising the bar, and we will continue to do that year after year. So thank you to this leadership team who, while it's lots of contribution, they kept their eye on every single detail. So we really appreciate your effort. Are there any questions in general?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think this is so awesome. So thank you for your work on this. I know you mentioned about a third of the attendees were secondary. Other than the credit recovery, what would you say was the most popular, like for high school kids?
What was most popular? Hard to say, but I can tell you, and well, I will get you that information, but many of our buildings sponsored their own programs this year. So passionate teachers ran programs like hiking club, horticulture, chess. Miller South put on a production. So a lot of the secondary outside of credit recovery, the big district, we're building-based kind of startup programs.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions as well. So first, let me just begin by saying I think this is a marvelous construct, and the depth and breadth of programming that was offered, I think was, I think the only word to describe it would be amazing. And so I just had a couple questions with regard to that. Well, first off, let me just say that I would have loved to have, there are a number of books I would have loved to have thrown off a building when I was in grade school. I would have found that a cathartic experience, let me tell you. So understanding that, to your point, Keith, that we're still working on the program quality metrics piece. And so some of my questions are really about that. So for example, just some things to be thoughtful about. And so, for example, you mentioned that we had 4,000 scholars registered for one or more camps, but they filled almost all of the seats, right? So I guess the question would be, is 4,000 good? I mean, so again, I wouldn't know, right? So as we're benchmarking that against maybe other urbans or like districts, is 4,000 good, or and if it's not, then should we be talking about, do we need more than 10,000 seats, right? Because if we're trying to figure out how to get more kids enrolled, then that means that if 4,000 are taking up 9,500, sounds to me like if we had even 500 more kids, we'd have been turning kids away for slots, right? So that's one kind of comment. The other one was, and again, understand your point about needing to get more data, but I'm just curious if you know, do we collect demographic data on the students?
We do. What's beautiful, what the consultants helped us do was marry a registration system with our student information system.
Okay.
And so Howard's team, thank you to them, they put activity codes to every single camp. So we'll have them all tagged along with daily attendance, and we'll be able, you ask the question, we'll be able to tell you the answer.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. And that kind of dovetails with, again, we talk about the improve equity and access. So again, what I'd love to know, not now, but just as you're working through the data is, who are these kids, right? Are they in fact our neediest, our neediest families, right? And so, and if they aren't, like, what would you recommend that we be doing, differently to get more of those kids involved, right? And then kind of the last thing I was going to mention was, I ask a lot, in these board meetings, I ask a lot of questions about survey results, right? I always ask that question. If there's a survey, I'm going to ask a question about the number of responses we got, right? So, for example, if the universe is approximately 4,000 families, understanding that some families have more than one kid, so maybe not 4,000 exactly, but if we say that, for example, that 87% of the families found it was, so it was easy to find and learn about programs on the website. And again, this connects back to like who our kids are and our neediest families actually utilizing the website. If we're saying that's our number, if we had 4,000 approximate families, how many responses did we get for that survey? Like, do you know? I mean,
For that survey, we had 300 responses.
Okay, gotcha. So that'd be a question where, like, how do we get more folks to respond, right? And so, but again, but don't take my questions to be anything but just constructive, because again, I think it's a marvelous program, and I would have loved to have had access to these kinds of things as well, and so, and kind of I guess the last, I lied, there was one other thing. You talked about the impact on the learning, right? So I'm curious as we work through the data, down the road, because I think Massimo was the first summer we did this, right? And then this is summer number 2. So just kind of thinking through, like, how do we measure the impact on things like learning loss, and and are there trends that would suggest that kids who are in these programs actually do better in the following academic year? So that's kind of the universe of questions that are kind of swirling in my mind that I would love to talk more about.
Absolutely. And just to kind of put you at ease, we do have our testing and research department on notice that as soon as I get all of those kids entered into our eSchool system, probably around September, they'll be able to look at, the fall assessments and start answering some of those
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you.
I was just going to add in on that particular, because a lot of your questions actually dovetail with the questions we were asking ourselves throughout and will continue, because we know that one of the things that we'll want to do is to be able to draw some conclusions from this type of big bet. So we are actively working, even with the feds and other districts, with this notion of how are you assessing impact, especially in this way. And so they're interested in our story about things that we're doing, and hopefully too within the learning community. Not only are we going to be doing work here in our district, but we'll be in a community of learners that are asking those very questions. We believe that more engaged students having these wider opportunities, though, will make a difference for student achievement. And as it relates to even collecting some of the data and feedback, as we went along in the summer and were issuing some of the surveys themselves, I think you heard a shout out to Stancy Sykes and the team in working with families. One of the things we began to do was to say, can we also convene some live, kind of focus groups, asking people, so that we weren't solely depending on people responding to a survey to be able to understand how things were going, what barriers they were experiencing, and then dedicating a live person to be available, all day, meant that families didn't have to just go to the website and navigate technology. If they weren't comfortable doing so, they could be assured that a live body would answer the phone, walk them through, could enroll them themselves. So we'll continue to learn, kind of what percent of parent is using which of those options as we continue to make decisions for the future. And we did keep track of, too, for our schools in clusters with greater challenge, to what was the enrollment level there, and how can we ensure that at the end of the day we're reaching children who even need that the most.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that informative presentation, and more importantly, for all the work you're doing and those that you work with for our young people this summer. We now move to our fourth item, which is approval of the previous meeting minutes on Monday, 11 July 2022. For the regular meeting minutes from that meeting, is there a motion on the table?
I so move.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Perry.
Second.
Is there a second? It's been seconded by Dr. Hall to approve the regular meeting minutes from 11 July 2022. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none. Roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Abstain.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to personnel recommendations. Madam Superintendent?
Sure. I am going to be recommending the approval of personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16. As you know, we are less than a few weeks before the start of the school year, so we are engaged in a range of hires that will enable us to open smoothly. Before I ask for that to be considered, though, Kathy McVeigh is going to come to the side podium and make some important introductions.
Thank you. I have two brief introductions this evening. Patty Stauffer, you could stand up, please. Patty Stauffer is tonight. We are recommending her for an elementary principal position. She's been with the district since 1994. First as an elementary teacher for many years, and in 2013, she became one of the district's first consulting teachers, helping to successfully launch our peer assistance and review program. She became a dean of students in 2018, and with the elementary principal position, she will be assigned to Mickey Bright CLC, replacing Debbie Musick, who recently resigned. Thank you. Michelle?
So wait, I'm sorry. So can I just interject for a second? So
Yes.
it's usual. I've become accustomed to the folks that we're doing this with, this process, that they have a chance to, if they would like to speak. I mean, if you don't want to, you
So
don't
you do have
but,
to come up to the
you know.
podium and say a few words.
So yes, sorry.
Please, yeah, you're fine.
I would just like to say thank you for this opportunity to the board, Superintendent Fowler Mack. As a proud Akron Public Schools graduate myself and a lifelong educator and learner, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to support the students, the staff, and the community over at Mickey Bright. So thank you.
All right, Michelle, if you can come on up to the podium, please. Michelle Marcus Kearns began her career as a language arts teacher at Akron Schools in 1993. In 2001, she became a dean and then an assistant principal at Ennis. The following year, she became assistant principal at North High School and later moved to East High School. In 2005, she was named principal at Goodyear Middle School. After a year there, she was named middle school principal at Litchfield. She stayed there until 2012 when she became the principal at Ellett High School. Tonight, we are recommending her for the supervisor of secondary schools position, secondary principals position, excuse me, and she will oversee all the high school principals.
All right. Good evening. So I'd just like to say thank you to Superintendent Fowler Mack and the Akron Public School Board members for this incredible opportunity to continue my tenure with APS in a leadership capacity. I would welcome the opportunity to continue working with high school principals and their buildings. I think we're doing such great things with kids, but there's so many more things we could be doing. And the opportunity to work across the district with the high schools would just be fabulous. And I know we could do great things. So thank you.
Thank you. So with those introductions, that it's kind of apropos to bid farewell to so many distinguished emeritus members of our staff across the board, but also with those introductions, I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
So moved.
Second. Thank you very much. It's been properly moved by Ms. Autry, seconded by Mr. Perry, to approve the personnel recommendations. Any open discussion on those items? All right, hearing and seeing none, roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton.
Mrs. McKittrick?
No on 5.10 and yes on the balance.
5.1 and thank you. Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry? Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to our business affairs recommendations. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, sir. I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 22. They are in proper format. I wish to recommend their approval.
Thank you very much. We've been properly recommended the resolutions and motions on the consent agenda. Are there any motion to approve?
I so move.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion for this motion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton?
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to business affairs recommendations. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, I wish to recommend the approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23.
Thank you very much. It's been properly recommended for the business affairs recommendations. Is there a motion on the table?
I so move.
And properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Autry. Any open discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote, please. Mr. Pendleton?
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick,
No on 23.7 and 23.43, and yes on the balance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to Superintendent's report. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, given the presentations this evening, I won't do any comprehensive report. I did want to add voice to those expressions of sympathy that have already been shared for Coach Flossie's family members. I, too, as a very young educator and brand new coach, had the pleasure of working with Coach Flossie at Buchtel High School, where he was athletic director during my tenure as the varsity coach there of the program. And I can say before it is vogue, his attention to equity, he always wanted to make sure the girls had the same opportunity that the boys did. So oftentimes, out of the budget of the boys programs, he really leveled the playing field to make sure our girls had wonderful opportunities to have the support they needed and to have like experiences. So he will be missed. Again, as I stated earlier, we're approximately 4 weeks away from welcoming our scholars, our staff, and families back to a new school year. So there are many, many preparations underway. The leaders who sit around the room and their teams are deeply committed and at work, preparing buildings, readying materials, communicating with families, completing the hiring or attending to the technology needs, special plans to ensure the success and support of our students. So from our administrators, our teachers, our support staff, I want to report that we really are looking forward to having a great year, engaging with our families at yet another level, and we'll be ready for a smooth and successful opening. We do have still some positions that are available, so want to lift that for you, the board, as you communicate with members of our community and for the community that is following our board proceedings, that they will spread the word that the Akron Public Schools is a place where persons can be seen, feel valued, and really contribute. So we really do want to invite persons to consider us as they think about places where they want to serve, and especially a place that is deeply, deeply committed to the students and families within our community. So we are very excited and extremely optimistic about the year. As well, I just wanted to bring to your awareness that last week, as I reported a few weeks ago, this past week was the Browns Give Back Day. So soon we will be able to share pictures, reflections. We will be acknowledging enhanced spaces in East CLC. And so the Browns organization oftentimes periodically chooses a place for their staff members throughout the organization to, at minimum, volunteer 10 hours. And this year chose to partner with us here in the school system. And so I was able to go over and greet the volunteers on that day and look forward to the surprise that our students will have when they return to school this fall, because they not only attended to some space, they left a very special treat for every single one of our students and staff members in that building. So more to come on that. And before we truly get going in the year, the Be Kind 330 is still alive and well, and many wonderful expressions, a lot promoted by our students themselves, have been taking place throughout our community at a time in which our community could really use that type of leadership. So we really have a lot to celebrate, and we'll be able to share some of those examples with you. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Superintendent. Any questions for the superintendent? All right, hearing and seeing none, we will move to the president's report. So there's just a few items. First, I think I want to thank the board for hanging in there with us over the summer as we continue to meet. I know we do have a board member, and actually a few of us who have had days that we've had to miss, and so appreciate each board member being able to still be available and to work through some items that the board needs to work through. And with that being said, I just wanted to just remind the board, even though the state legislature authority for public bodies to meet virtually ended, some weeks ago, we still, I think, have a need to continue to work through our policy committee to really move forward the live streaming policy, which we've talked about before, to ensure that all of our board meetings and committee meetings are live streamed for the public to still be able to engage with us. I think that we've talked about two of our foundational principles of this board being, one, built on equity, and two, built on transparency. And I think that's important for us. And so I know that that's something that's going to be on the agenda again for the policy committee coming up, hoping that we can get that to the full board at the next meeting after that committee meeting. With that being said, there's a few other things. One of the things that we have a need for continued professional development. So I'm glad that Mr. Alexander mentioned the Urban School Boards Conference or Alliance that we are just now joining as a state on September 8th and 9th as an option for us. Hopefully that we will take advantage of that. I think we also, as we've worked with the superintendent to try to get us a scheduled another retreat, I want us to revisit that and revisit actually scheduling and setting a date. I know that became difficult with summer vacations and all, so wanted to mention that as something that we can try to get nailed down pretty soon. And then the two other things, one is we received a request from the Greater Akron LGBTQ Community Needs Assessment, which has collected data on both youth and adult experiences across Akron around what it is that their needs are. And some really compelling data has come out as I've seen some of the early glances of that analysis. And they made a request to APS, and I'll forward it to the rest of the board to have a letter of support from the district and or for the board in really moving some of those recommendations forward, which there will be a public formal presentation in August. And I'll share that information with you there. As we know, we have students come to us from all walks of life. We are a public school, so we cannot deny anyone. And so we have to provide the best experience for all of our students. And so that might be good information for us to be able to take in and see what else we can provide. I know we have, since I spoke about policy earlier, we also have another policy on pronouns and chosen names that's also being discussed. So that might be another avenue for us to learn and grow as well. And then the last item that I had is really one that I think that none of us are terribly happy about. And our treasurer CFO has accepted a new position. We're excited for you and your opportunity. But have to say we definitely are going to miss you, and so that comes with some mixed emotions from this board. And with that being said, just for the public, we are actually working on an agreement with Mr. Pendleton to stay on with us as the treasurer of record until the end of the year. We'll work out those details, and hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be able to share more details on that agreement, as well as our process for moving forward. We're looking pretty quickly at working through a search process for our next treasurer and CFO. We have started putting some of those plans together, and my hope is by the next meeting with the full board, all of that will be shared with you. You've had time to weigh in, and we could also share part of that plan with the community at the next meeting as well. So with that being said, we are moving full steam ahead, as you can only imagine, as less than 4 weeks with the academic year starting, and many, many things for us to do and tackle together. So thank you very much. That concludes my report. Any questions or discussion?
I have one question.
Yes, Ms. Ellison.
Where can we get the report for the LGBT?
I have the information in my email. I will forward it to you.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. We will now move to the treasurer's report.
And I have an advocacy update for the board tonight. And thank you, Mr. President, for the kind words. A few weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. for a busy 2 days in the annual AASA and School Business Officials Advocacy Conference. Topics were Esser spending, as you can imagine. And really what we were asking as we were knocking on doors is giving districts extra time and flexibility to spend, telling our stories about timeline in which labor and materials are available. There's also the consideration of a school infrastructure Esser bill that's pending, and we're going to lobby heavily for that, as that seems to be an emerging expense nationally that's many states are not as fortunate as Ohio with a facilities commission that's sponsored and co-funded with state and schools in the way that we partner. So we heard many school districts around the nation asking for these infrastructure dollars. So more to follow on that. Also was the call for fair funding with the Individuals with Disability Act. And a couple stats for you, as this is not likely surprising for anyone. But some time ago, Congress pledged to pay the funding required for students above and beyond a typical student, cost in upwards of 40% of what that base cost would be. And nationally, we're coming in at just under 13%. So we shared a lot with our elected officials there. And finally, a shout out to Deb Falk and Laura Kepler. What they don't know is that powerhouse has been a resource for Senator Brown's office, Sherrod Brown's office, in telling the story about meal waivers. Little do they know, when I send them the email in the morning and they respond back within a couple hours, it's in Sherrod Brown's policy office later that afternoon. And they're very, very much appreciative of it. But one thing, we appreciate Senator Brown's support in extending the meal waiver authority under the Keep Kids Fed Act. However, there's one component that I think it was really interesting for them to hear, and that's this transitional rule for milk, sodium, whole grains, and some extra requirements. And just as we're seeing labor shortages and material shortages, it's difficult to secure. Components to be compliant with some of these new rules. So, again, thanks, Deborah, and send my thanks to Laura for those details. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pendleton. Any questions for the treasurer? Hearing and seeing none, we will now move to our committee reports. Legal contracts and board policy, Mr. Alexander.
Yes, we have for the first reading, policy 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. This is the first reading of policy 2266. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the Legal Contracts and Board Policy Committee? All right, hearing, seeing none, we will move to our Finance and Capital Management Committee. Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did meet last week. The bulk of our discussion was around the Kenmore Garfield draft report that we received, and so I know that that's going to be for a later discussion, but I just wanted to acknowledge that that was the bulk of our meeting. And I'll just say that we do have some work to do moving forward. And I'm going to just encourage this board and all involved to be really creative in what we do regarding the many needs that we have. So, but again, we'll be discussing that further moving forward. Also, today, we had a meeting with the Joint Board of Review where we did receive a report out from the Citizens Monitoring Committee regarding higher CLC. And so I'm happy to report, looks like we came $2 million under budget on that, so that's good news for us. Also, we received a report from EDGE and the Workforce Monitoring Group that G. Stevens, consultant, does for us. And they basically focused on 4 different statistics that they were monitoring. Participation in the program, which was 16.4%, which exceeds the goal that they set of 5%. And this mostly involved the Ellett and partially the Kenmore or Garfield buildings. And then also local workers averaged 17.5% on the projects, and minority workers, 10.8% was the average, and then female workers, 1.3%. So a lot of those goals are on track to what we'd like to see. We need to, find ways to better increase female participation. That was one of the points that was made as well. And so if anyone has the urge to see more detailed information, they did give us a handout. I'm sure we can get that forwarded to everyone else. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Autry. Any questions for the Finance and Capital Management? I do want to add one thing. I appreciate you mentioning the JBR, Ms. Autry. I failed to mention in my report that doing that, we did hear from the Citizens Monitoring Committee, as Ms. Autry mentioned, and it's calling for us to have new members. And so I know Ms. McKittrick, before joining this board, was on that group. And so we're looking for about 3 new members from APS. And so we'll be working with Superintendent Fowler-Mack to determine those individuals. But if any member of the board has anyone that they think is burning to serve on the Citizens Monitoring Group, please let us know. Their main functions are to review the spending and of the projects. And so we're in, I think, Mrs. Folk, if I remember correctly, phase 4, moving to phase 5. Okay. I was so off. So moving to 4, 5, and 6, which the 6 is the final building, which is Garfield currently now. So with that being said, there's a little bit more work to do, but not a lot. And so if there is anyone that that has a burning interest please let us know, because we will be hopefully making those appointments in the next 3 weeks. So with that being said, that's all I wanted to add. Any other questions or comments for finance and capital management? Okay, hearing none, instructional policy and student achievement, and I never know who's going to start, so Mrs. McKittrick.
We met on July 18th, and we are going to highlight a few different things, and Diana's going to start us off.
Thank you. So on June 24th, Governor DeWine signed House Bill 583, which establishes screening measures, professional development, and certification process for dyslexia. And so we received information regarding that and how our district is moving forward. So starting this year, teachers are required to complete 18 hours of professional development, and it's being phased in. So this first year is just kindergarten and first grade teachers. For the school year 23-24, it'll be second and third grade teachers, and then for school year 24-25, 4th through 12th grade teachers. Instructors of special programs like gym, art, et cetera, do not have to take this training. Screenings, I believe, start next school year. And then for kindergarten through third grade, they'll all be screened. 4th through 6th grade by request. There is a guidebook that the state is working on to help in developing a certification process, but I believe our district is being proactive and getting that put together for our staff. Thank you.
And next, Mr. Perry.
One thing we also discussed that I was especially excited about was conservation science, which is coming to our high school scholars. The conservation science course satisfies the Ohio Core Science graduation requirements. It is an inquiry-based laboratory course incorporating biology, chemistry, and environmental science concepts. They use real data from conservation projects, and they measure the success of recovery in the U.S. and the global world. Looking forward to seeing that in action for sure.
Thank you. And finally, earlier in the agenda, we approved a grant from the Ohio Department of Education, $1.62 million for early childhood education funds. And it's an annual grant given to districts to support preschool. And it's essentially our operating budget for the preschool program. And the grant covers salaries, fringe benefits, instructional supplies, materials, and equipment. And then, as always, I'd like to remind you to look at the links in your agenda for the college and career academies and the Stay in the Game updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. McKittrick, Mr. Perry, or Ms. Autry?
Just love the organization of that update. Just want to say how much I appreciate that, how thorough it was as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? The only thing I had that I saw in the Stay in the Game document that was there, I know Dr. Hall and I went last year to when Chomps visited the school. I was excited to see that we're hoping to announce that soon. So I really loved being at that, so I'm looking forward to that again. Our students and their families, it was, in my opinion, one of the best sights. You saw all emotions. You saw crying of joy, crying of sadness because they're leaving their babies. But you also saw some people really excited to see Chomps. So really excited that we have that partnership.
Just had a quick comment on that. Yeah, that was over at Hatton, as I recall. Yeah. And I have two little girls who are about almost kindergarten age, and so I was just getting up on all the fashions of the kindergartners and all the things that my kids are going to be wearing very soon. And by the way, it starts with unicorns. Just in case you're still wondering, it's still unicorns, by the way. It was unicorns when I was a kid. It's still unicorns. So in case you're wondering, senior staff is unicorns. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you're actually next for Equity Committee. Dr. Hall.
Fantastic. We are meeting. We have the honor and privilege to meet tomorrow, which is my birthday.
We are meeting on my birthday. That is how committed we are to this work. Even on my birthday, I will be here. Yes. So this is 2 years in a row. I'm here for this. Just so you all know, I'm devoted. Tomorrow, bring your popcorn. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hall, and you have not let us forget that since last year, so I don't know how we let that happen again. But thank you very much for your service and sacrifice. We now move to our next agenda item for unfinished business, the Esser priorities and funding discussion. We will open it up first for Madam Superintendent and Mr. Pendleton for any opening comments, and then open it up to the board. So, Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. I just wanted to bring awareness to the items that we have linked into the board agenda to assist the board with the discussion. So first and foremost, we do have listed the last presentation that reminded the board of the past. It kind of went to the past and brought us current. So past strategies and resources. It talked about the Esser planning and what that planning meant for Esser 3 funds, and then began to go into the priorities. So just to familiarize yourself, we attached that presentation from June. We also, and Mr. Pendleton can go into even more depth, we gave more information about the Esser 1, 2, and 3, the spending. We began to detail that out and to give you a more detailed picture of what the spending has looked like and plans look like across our 10 strategic investment areas. So we embedded that underneath the topics and then the strategic investment areas, and also tried to highlight again when board action occurred against that particular topic, just as a source of reference so that the board could follow along through the discussions that have been had to date. And we didn't link here, but we can make available. We also summarized and did provide you in your weekly update the summarized set of presentations, timelines, and activities that have occurred over the course of the year as it relates to Esser 3 planning in particular, just so that we could recall the journey we've been on, the adjustments we've made, the feedback we've received, and then where we are to date. So you also have that summarized set of information available should you need it. Mr. Pendleton?
I'll just add a little bit more to the larger spreadsheet, or Gantt chart as we're calling it. If you look at the top and the construction of the spreadsheet, one of the first columns it says CARES Act Esser 1. A couple columns over, you see CRRSA Esser 2, and then you see ARP Esser. Those are the 3 different rounds of federal dollars. And obviously, to the left, working our way right, you see lots of board action, board resolution numbers, and to the right, especially on the larger amount with ARP Esser 3, you see those fields a little bit more vacant. It's because those activities, strategic investments, they just haven't been approved yet. So whether we're partnering with outside folks, whether we're hiring more internal folks, I think the thing to note with this is it'll be coming in front of the board because I did get a few questions about the gas gauge component of those committed funds, right? And thinking that those had already been board approved and resolved, so to speak. So stay tuned, and I know you might have some questions here. Hopefully we can answer today or get back to you soon on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to also preface the conversation before we open it up. I know in a previous meeting, we talked about understanding all that we allocate to each one of the priorities, and I talked to both Superintendent Fowler-Mack and Treasurer CFO Pendleton around making a little bit more simpler chart here that identifies the spending that we have for each priority for Esser, as well as any additional grants or other funding that we receive for that priority, and then what we are committing in general fund. So this will give the board a full picture of what we're doing for each one of those priorities. And I know one of the items specifically that we talked about before was around supporting our diverse pipeline of teachers and ensuring that we have more diversity there and actually support there financially, and the amount being smaller, and there being other grants and funds supporting that. And so I know that we talked about that not being possible to get to us today. That is something that we will get soon. So we'll have an addendum of this conversation, hopefully to button it up at the next meeting. So I just wanted to reference that we've already kind of talked through those details. Yes.
May I say one more thing? And so this is a work in progress. It's a lot of detailed record keeping, those sorts of things. It is not, it is a work in progress, so it is not completed, because I did get a question earlier that asked about even in the first section where we're talking about thriving scholars, and we mentioned even smaller class sizes in elementary grades, and in particular classes, especially core content classes where we're able at our high schools. And so we have enacted, and so the board has acted on the hiring of teachers, even in the course of this year for that, and even full-time instructional coaches, that sort of thing. So that occurred even in this year. So we don't yet have the notation in terms of when board action occurred. So there are some that we will continue to update, but as you recall, we've even lowered class sizes, increased the instructional coaching capacity, and things like the guidance counselors, to make sure that there are full-time guidance counselors in buildings, things of that nature that we will need to appropriately highlight that, yes, board action did occur, those things are in place, and they're set up for the foreseeable future because of these resources.
Thank you very much. I think that was an important note. Appreciate that. I think Dr. Hall had something.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, and then I'll cede the floor so that as we rotate around, if there's a need for that. So I guess I'll start with the reduction class size and reduction of teachers. I know we've talked about the additional school support staff and the hiring of teachers, and certainly don't have any concerns with that. Right? I think it's the absolute right move. But my concern as I thought, given this topic more thought, is and this is why you've heard me ask the question about funds that can come from general fund versus Esser dollars, right? Because I keep thinking that when we hit 2024, are we going to turn around and have to lay off a bunch of folks because we've hired them using funds that we no longer have, right? So that's why it's part of the reason why I keep asking the question, like, well, what can we use general funds for, right? And so I keep thinking about, there's one word in my mind that keeps flashing as we're talking about Esser, is that sustainability, over and over and over again, right? So we get beyond 2024, how much of all this is sustainable, right? And so again, I'm not asking for an answer today on that particular question, but I just want to highlight that that's a concern I have, because I'd hate to see us turn around in 2 years and say, okay, well, those funds are dried up and they've gone away, and those were the funds that we used to hire the extra school counselors and hire the extra teaching staff and reduce class sizes. So is all that going to be reversed out once we get past 2024? So that's just kind of a comment. And then I guess my question was just going to be, Where is it at here? So I know that we talked quite a bit, and Ryan, first of all, I appreciate the gauge and the committed, expended, remaining piece. I think that makes things even more clear. But my question was, as we think about the survey results, right? So I know that I'm the survey person, right? I'm always asking about survey results, right? And so I know that one of the things that we placed, at least that some of us asked, was about how do we get more teachers to respond to surveys, and support staff as well. So not just talking about teachers, but support staff in general. And so I guess the question I had is, as we look through the Esser 3 current strategies and resources, right? We have these sort of buckets here. How is that reflective of any additional feedback that we've gotten via an increased effort to get teachers and support staff to reply back? And I asked that question just because I've gotten a lot of feedback, and I've seen it in I've seen it reflected in some of the Facebook pages that our teachers are on about Esser funds being utilized for teacher compensation. Teachers are saying, well, I put that in my survey result, but I'm not seeing it reflected in anything that you guys are talking about. Now, granted, I don't have access to all that information, but again, it just made me think about that piece as well, because I know that there are other districts that have used Esser funds to provide some bonuses or it's impacted compensation, right? So I just want to again ask the question, so it's really two-part, right? A, how did additional survey results impact this, if it did at all, and B, the teacher compensation component.
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. The document that we put into as an artifact here for your reference is the presentation from June. We have had additional opportunities, both through a written survey and opportunities through in-person opportunity for staff members to give additional feedback. We'd be more than happy to update the board on here's what we heard, and here's how we're thinking about that type of input. So we would be happy to do that, and we would not be prepared to do that on the spot today. But I want to also just mention that we have heard all of the feedback. We are listening. We are incorporating. Part of the story that we'll be able to tell is feedback of affirmation. The topics that are listed there are also topics that are focused in the right places. So there was some refining feedback. We asked the question, what's missing, and things of that nature. We won't be able to talk a lot about compensation right now. We are actively engaged in negotiations with our teachers that we hope to be able to settle very, very successfully. So we won't be able to talk about in detail how it is. We are, responding, but we have heard, and so we've tried to acknowledge broadly that we're listening, we're understanding, we're willing and able to use our resources in very broad ways to ensure that our educators are poised to do their jobs effectively, that our scholars, first and foremost, are supported, that they can recover and advance. And so one more comment, and so while not answering the question in its entirety, but I think we've been very clear with the fact that we will not be able to sustain everything that we're able to do with this one-time money. We hope to make an impact such that we move our students on their way. We have very much so considered our plan through the lens of sustainability, so we can talk about that further, but we've also been very clear. We will not be able to sustain each and every action that we're taking. And so we really want to make sure it makes a difference, moves the needle for our scholars, their families, our school community.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I guess the only thing I would say in response is, I think with regard to compensation, yeah, obviously we're in negotiations. I think the critique I heard a lot was that, to your point, they didn't feel like it was reflected, right? So clearly we can't talk, nuts and bolts on it. But I think that the pushback I got was, hey, we're putting this in survey results and we're not seeing it reflected anywhere, right? So to your point about affirmation, how do we affirm, that folks have been heard and how do we reflect it, So, okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I do want to point to one of the things that Mr. Pendleton mentioned about advocacy and some of the work happening in D.C. I think that's, some of our energy, hopefully, as we learn more about what they're doing, can be to support some of those efforts because sustainability is a major kind of focus and area of, concern for these funds. I think everyone involved, if there's nothing else that will be gleaned from this discussion, is that everyone is concerned about sustainability. Everyone understands that it is not going to be easy, but the hope is that we're able to move the needle. And I do appreciate, that comment because that is, the focus. But, sustainability is also the focus. So hopefully something comes out of that advocacy there that will help us move the needle. With that being said, I wanted to ask more so about another piece of the plan. And I don't know how this interacts or not, so that's why I'm asking. So under operations, facilities, and finance, so there's broadband maintenance and device replacement and all on here, and there's quite a bit, set for Esser 3. I don't know how much of that changes. I know that there was something about the county, I think, is working on some broadband extensions, and then there was the state, I think it's a state grant that's working on that as well. So I don't know if and when that all comes through, are we able to potentially apply some of the funds that we've already spent in that area to use for something else? I doubt it. I don't know, but just wanted to ask about that with all those other advances happening in that area.
For the broader goal of trying to ensure that we are a connected community and that our families and scholars have the resources that they need. We are sitting at the right table. So we are engaged with the county, engaged with many of the groups throughout. Much of what we put in the grant have to deal with our basic infrastructure, with just ensuring that our academic programs could continue. So we can provide additional information in your weekly update to say, here's a tick more about what's already included in our Esser 3 grant. And of course, if we're able in any part of the grant to free up money because we're able to partner with or tag on to other initiatives, we're always going to try to extend dollars where it's just efficient and effective to do so. But I believe much of what is in our Esser plans has to do with things like replacing our technology and some of our basic infrastructure. So we'll provide some additional, Howard's nodding, so I didn't murder that response. We'll provide some additional information about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Autry?
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is around mental health, our investments in that. I know that was a huge theme with all of our surveys. I guess I'm just now noticing now, I see where we're investing some of the funds for our scholars. And I feel like we should also be allocating some of that under thriving families as well. So, I mean, I see some of the things listed, and I don't know if mental health somehow falls under any of those things, but if it was more explicit, I just think that's really important. The mental health piece is extended not only to our students, but our families. So I didn't see that under thriving families as an allocation. So that was my comment.
Madam Superintendent?
No, thank you. We can provide some additional information about places where, because to have thriving scholars, thriving schools, kind of thriving families is, our organizing framework. And so we do have some initiatives that deal with the mental health supports for not only scholars, but for faculty and staff, and also for families as well. And in that place, we are also partnered through United Way and our family resource centers. So there's also part of that initiative is the expanding of family resource centers within our overall school community, but we can provide you with additional information. I think that's a great point out, and it's something that we care a lot about as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much for the discussion. As we've been shared, there'll be more information given to us, and we'll also continue the discussion at the next meeting. As there's currently no new business to come before the board, we are going to move to the next item, which is a need to accept a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 for the purposes of considering the employment of a public employee or official of the school district, and G4, preparing for negotiations. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Dr. Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not believe that there's any actionable items that we will have when we return. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And I hope that you have a great week. We will now stand in recess for executive session.